Okay, okay, okay. Let's do it. Hold on. All right. Reset. Okay. Back to back zero Earth charts. Like my own. Let's check something really quick. Mhm. Okay. Okay, okay, okay. Charge my phone. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. Um, got this pulled up in a whole sign right now. Do I want to switch to Placid? This is the big question, and the answer is yes. I have been feeling a little bit more placidity lately. Well, I use both, but whatevs. Mhm. All right, so Aries Sun, Leo rising. Mhm. Oh, you got your Mercury conjunct my Mercury, my Sun. Very cool. Aqua Venus, just like me. Mars in Libra, Moon in Cancer. Okay. Moon square Sun. All right. Fire, water. Know that one well. Sun. Okay, yeah, the T square, Sun square, Sun, Moon, Mars. Do, do. Shoots in Cap. Around six Cap. Around the South Node. Interesting. Mhm. Mercury square Neptune. Know that one very well. Sun square or opposite Saturn. Venus square Chiron. I just had Venus trine. Okay. All right. So, Cancer moon, Aries sun. So the first obvious thing, and let me just scan. Okay, so you do have three of the four elements present. You have no Earth. Talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, let's see. Squares. You got Saturn. Okay. So, which actually does that make it a karmic aspect? Is it a square? No, it was part. It's did Sun square nodes. Sun and Saturn square nodes. It doesn't show the Sun, the karmic aspect. Sun opposite Saturn would be a karmic aspect. Interesting. And it's ninth and third, but it's 3-9. Okay. We're very close to the IC, so that's very, very. Oh, you have Pluto on the IC like me. Oh, and Saturn. Damn. Well, I hope you. I don't know where you live, but if you live away from where you were born, very good. Because if you live in Missoula and every time you go back, this is astrocartography. It's a different reading I offer. I think everyone should get it if they're interested in traveling and just knowing their energetic hot spots and cold spots. But um, that means you have the Saturn IC and the Pluto IC very close to Missoula. So I'm actually on my Saturn IC right now, and Pluto IC is where I go back to at my mom's in San Francisco. So, and where I grew up in Portland and born in San Francisco. So I know this both well, and that would just be like a kind of, you know, non-birth chart advice that if you do live there, that's very, very difficult, and moving away would probably be very desirable. But anyways, so being an Aries sun with a Cancer moon and a Leo rising. Well, don't me and you have some things in common? Our big three are both two fire rising, Leo rising, and my sun's in Pisces, moon's in Sag, your moon's in Cancer, sun's in Aries. So it's like, that whole dynamic, which I know so well. Which is probably why I'm doing your reading with the Mercury conjunction. That means you'll understand me very, very well. Um, so in essence, when you have Sun square Moon, oftentimes the parents were divorced, not always, but a lot of times they were, or if not divorced, very, very different ideas. When I was writing my book called Pisces Live Nine Lives, on Amazon, I get $3 for each copy, I think. I haven't checked the reports in 2 years, but yeah. The point is that when I was writing one chapter, I didn't expect much to come out about the main. It's interesting doing these readings on my Saturn line. I feel like I'm being very accurate with my speech. This is like my second reading I've done since I've been in Argentina. I feel like I'm like very accurate with my speech. And that's really helping me doing these readings, like energetically. But anyways, mosquito go away. So basically, when I was writing that, it felt like when I first started, like, okay, there's not much that's going to come out that I don't know. But then through the process of writing, a bunch came out. And it was just like so interesting, right? Because like, when we write, things just come, right? So it just showed me how affected even me as the black sheep, the one who's, Aquarian and does his own thing and doesn't listen to anyone, or, just like I influence myself, right? I'm not like a follower in any way. I still, like the influence of your parents is inescapable. So, um, if you think of if you were to do that exercise, it would probably be very, very different what you would have received from mom and from dad. Now, on the subject of the moon's in the 12th in whole signs, 11th in Placidus. And if you think of the 12th moon, oftentimes that's a mother. Usually it's the mother that was either not very present emotionally or not very present physically. But I try to stay away from moon equals mom, sun equals dad, just because of my experience of it not always being accurate. But yeah. So best way I can explain it is this. If you're an egg, the shell, the mask, what people see, the outside is ascendant. The sun, the white is the sun, or yeah, the white is the sun, the yolk is the moon. So obviously you know about your Aries, right? I don't really need to tell people about their sun sign because they've read horoscopes, and um, people people tend to understand their sun sign better than I do, like um it's just how it is, right? But the point is that they're squaring each other. So yeah, the main messages would have been very different. Um, Most of the time, there's divorces with that square, like my parents and so many of my clients. But when there's not, I can't really think of a. Maybe it's happened like once or twice. I can't really think of a time out of a lot of times where I've seen this where the person was like, "Oh no, they have a great relationship," maybe once or twice was like, you know, they're still together, but they're just super different and they're fighting a lot, or they're just kind of they're together more like to not, break the family up, but like they're just yeah. So it's just two very different people, and psychologically it can create a split in the personality. Now, your sun is your masculine, like the yin yang, it's the yang, the moon is the yin, right? So you have that you combine them and you think, okay, how do they work? How do they not work? So as a square, there's tension between the two. And now I want to say also with sun square moon people that we are very high achievers. We tend to have a chip on our shoulder. Where's your Chiron? Yeah. So it's like we really, really um like I feel like we're trying to stand out in a sense, like where we're not trying to take dad's path or mom's path. We might take little bits and pieces from them, but we're trying to blaze our own trail. And essentially, with your like having the Leo rising, the way people will see you, and I was just talking about this the other day. I was like, it's so like I was at a nightclub, and I don't know if you saw my live or anything, but it was very kind of sketchy. Not the nightclub, it's just like what we saw. It was like my friend said he saw like like potentially human trafficked girls, like and like this crazy like hidden story of this weird place. I don't even know. He didn't tell me till after. Freaked me out. But um like I was like as a Leo rising Pisces, right? I was trying to like really keep attention away from me. But being a Leo rising doesn't work, you know? Um and it's almost like when you try to push attention away, sometimes it just comes back more. Now, as an Aries, like if back to the egg metaphor, it's like fire, fire, then water. So I would bet that let's say you're in a relationship or a deep friendship, that people might be very surprised about how sensitive you are, right? As you know, obviously Cancer Moon is very, very sensitive placement. And so to have the fire rising and fire sun, it then brings up the question, okay, well, how do you feed both mouths, right? You have the lunar and the solar, you know, they both need to be fed. So what do they both want? Or what does the moon need and what does the sun desire, to shine? So obviously, you know about Aries, ninth house, 12, 11, 10. Yeah. So, you're here to really experience a lot in life, right? You're here to learn a lot. It's really about truth. The ninth house is about your expanding truth, traveling, adventuring, um, you know, really intellectual, very philosophical. Um, it's like the teacher, it's like the student, teacher, philosopher, right? The archetype, very Sagittarian. Because it's Aries, I imagine that that domain of life would be one where you might have like a sort of gung-ho attitude, right? Towards new pursuits that can bring you towards truth. Because ultimately, your dharma, right? Like what you're meant to do on a big life. I'm gonna look at something like wait. Go, 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 go. But yeah, ultimately your larger life purpose, right, is linked to your dharma, to your 10th house, right? So for the ninth house person, the person who has Sagittarius, ninth house, big Jupiter in their chart, um, there tends to be this need to have that attitude that every time I learn more, the more I know, I know less, right? That kind of thing. Um, and as you and Mars is ruling the midheaven in Libra. So third house. So, it is sort of this mix of the acquisition of data, which you could look at as like the journalist who goes through life and experiments, meets, has different experiences of all sorts and um, you know, meets different people and all that. Different experiences. It's about the balance of collecting that data and not just like if it's too much third house slash Gemini, it's like the person who is always collecting the data, always like doing these more low, like not like lows and bad, but just like maybe like less. Like Sagittarius is what ties the philosophy, ties all the data into philosophies that guide your life. So imagine someone who's just always just getting data, 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 but they're never putting it together. So with Mars ruling the midheaven, I think that there could be, especially in its detriment in Libra, there could be some indecisiveness with career, but like Aries midheaven usually don't have that, but because it's ruled by Mars and Libra, which is very indecisive in retrograde too. um and we'll see what everything says, but there could be some of that back and forth, especially with the T square with your moon. But overall, yeah, overall, I would say that you, from a current perspective, are trying to get away from a lot of past life conditioning. And, it's clear, like looking at the South Node squaring Saturn, ruled by Saturn, squared by Saturn, that, you know, in Capricorn, that there's a lot of been there, done that with respect to kind of like if you had to like give an equivalent, a modern day equivalent, it would be like the worker, the person that just like works super, super hard. Um, and yeah, like just works super, super hard, and it's sort of like a workaholic in the sense that they're not really exploring, they're not really having a good balance of spirituality and real essence of meaning in their life, right? That's what I think about the Saturn square, and the fact that it's just like a double combo, the fact that it's Capricorn and squaring Saturn. So it makes me think of someone, like, I like to give modern equivalents. Yeah, who might, let's say, like they're working like in a big company, and they're just like very into like the day-to-day work, hard worker, able to overcome a lot, a grinder. And there's different ways you could look at it, right? Because like it's also like the house of service. So it could be, someone who, it could be, but the fact that square Saturn to me is usually like around how the society you were in, or just like whether it was like very traditional, the family, whatever it was, it kept you away from this like more spiritual perspective on life, right? Um, More locked into like kind of the rat race type energy of what would be looked at today. That's what that shows me, right? So with the North Node in Cancer, that is speaking about someone who needs to dive in, like they're here to have that spiritual relationship with themselves, right? And it makes sense also that you're a Cancer moon in this lifetime. So a lot of times people who have water placements in this lifetime, um, it's interesting, for women less, but um, sometimes, like you think like they'd be the best with dealing with their emotions, and sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not at all. um I think a lot of that depends on the upbringing, obviously, right? You don't really have, you have you don't have any outer planets, squares or oppositions. Let me just check if there's any quincunx. Yeah, I mean, it trines Jupiter, which is amazing. So yeah, none of that. But yeah, so I mean, you might actually be very well off emotionally, in the sense of like having a lot of perspective with Jupiter and Scorpio. I mean, you're definitely super intuitive. Like that's a very psychic placement to have. Um, Interesting. You're blocking the Lilith on my moon. Um, but so basically, um, back to kind of, I like to kind of like go here and then kind of bring it back, right? But I think your Mercury and Pisces will like that flow. But basically, you know, Cancer and Aries could not be more I mean, they're extremely different, right? Cancer, obviously, Cancer moon is very, very, as I said, it's the the dignity moon placement, meaning it's the moon sign that works the best. I would never say it's the best moon sign, right? But like someone might say that, right? Because it's a sign, the moon sign that works, the best with the energies of the moon, the goals of the moon. So people with that um are very, very good at meeting their emotional needs. Now there's a lot though, right? Because they're so sensitive, and because it's it's hidden, it may be throughout your life, like I said before, people's expectations of you when they meet you, not really sensing that water energy, could be very surprising and maybe not coming off in that way. But having a moon in water sign, there, especially if we're looking at it as a 12 house moon, there's that big time need for alone time, right? And very, very high emotional intelligence, right? Very deep emotions. Um, but like I said, like there can be that feeling of being very misunderstood because of people not like, was a Leo rising, you don't look like Aries sun, like you would be the person who's so sensitive, right? So there can be that feeling of like, yeah, people just not getting you, which can be very painful because there's that deep desire to just connect with others on a deeper level, right? Um, so when we talk about Cancer moons, the word intimacy is huge. Emotional intimacy, but at the same time, um, there is that potential for feeling like difficulty with expressing your deepest needs. Now, like I said, it is trine Jupiter, so that's very, very good for helping that. But your emotional need as a Cancer moon is to connect with people on an emotional level. And if you don't get that, then it's difficult for you to be happy. It's difficult for you to feel at ease. And also, Cancer rules the home and it's your North Node, right? So it's like sometimes Cancer North Nodes, they struggle with that idea of not just being like 1,000% career driven. Um, Sometimes they have karma as like a mother, not always. I think of it more in the sense of it's like you're here to connect with your emotions because in past lives you were too in that Saturnian material grind, right? Now, when I say in past lives, I'm not talking about every past life. I'm talking about mosquito. Um, just what I'm seeing in this chart, right? The karma you're dealing with now. But yeah. So I think the fact that you have your Mercury in water um is good because a lot of times, Cancer moons will keep their emotions to themselves, especially men, women less, because they feel like, no one's going to understand them. And the Mercury, which is your mind, your communication, and Pisces, I think being a water sign also, it makes you able to express the abstract and you know, and having three, a planet in every water sign, it's not a grand trine, but it's an elemental grand trine. It definitely gives you that real intuitive, mystical power in every level of, to have Jupiter in Scorpio and um, trine moon and then in Cancer and then Mercury and Pisces at the last degree is 29.057. It's like last, which I have your birth time is yeah. So like if it was even um a little bit after that, it could be in Aries, right? But we have it as Pisces, so must be meaning there. Um, but yeah, so what was I saying? So intuitively, I'm not getting that that's at least right now a big issue for you. Um, like if I saw Saturn doing something or something like that, then I'd be like, okay. But I don't see that. Um, but still, Cancer moons they're so sensitive that they need security, right? They have that craving for security. Like like let's say like on a romantic level, they want someone who I'll get to the romance in a sec, but Cancer moons, they love their room, they love their home, they love their space, they need that cocoon, you know? Like their home is everything to them, you know, and like whether it's having cats and making soup during the winter or gardening or cooking, you know, it's like your home is your sanctuary and that it needs to be respected and boundaries need to be respected around that. So when it comes to like more of the nature of it, like I said, you can absorb energies around you like a sponge, right? So um people in your environment who are feeling different things and putting out different energies, you're taking those in, right? You're a water moon, you're a natural healer. So any water moon, they have to surround themselves with people who have good energies, be in work environments where that's the case, living in places where that's the case. So important. I think like with your moon sign being by water could be very beneficial. But yeah. Um so you know, you can like the more with your North Node Cancer journey, it's like the more in touch you get with your core and emotional self, the more you can tell what someone else's energy or another energy is doing to you, right? Like suddenly you start to feel drained in a certain environment around a certain person. Is that you or is that them? And that's like where I think time alone and that spiritual relationship with yourself, however that looks, is paramount, right? Um, so being an empath, right? You can't stand suffering. So it's common for Cancer moons to be in helping professions or, you know, to really want to do something that's for the better of the world, right? And like I said, retreat from the world is necessary from time to time. Um, and sort of having strategies, having abilities, especially lacking Earth in your chart. Earth is the energy of consistency, and people with a lot of Earth, I always say like, you know, on a day-to-day level, you know, there's people who just every single day they're a pretty similar version of themselves. Usually, and now you do have Aries, so that helps a lot for that, and Leo rising, but Cancer moon emotionally can be very up and down, right? Especially following the lunar cycle is very important for Cancer moon. Um, so I would say that also Cancer moon can sometimes live too much in the past. Um, and sometimes, you know, they can be they have to watch out for being too emotionally led in certain situations, like making decisions when, you know, the emotions are peaking is not always the best idea, right? Hold on, I need to check something really quick. Yeah, so I've seen that with Cancer moons where it's like it's good to sort of take a step back in certain situations that are like emotionally like very, very you know, like intense. And hold on. Yeah, it can really like make a huge difference. And the big thing with water moons is like how good of a job they've done to tap into their intuition and to understand that what's my intuition, what's my imagination, right? Um, Now one thing with Cancer moons too, I was talking about how it can be sometimes stuck in the past. So like they're nurturing, like they're early nurturing. Usually, you know, Cancer moons, it's so important that they got the love and the attention, all that they needed. Um, they as kids, you know, when I do kids charts, like they will need more attention, you know, they'll need more love, more, you know, like more closeness and all that. And it's the same in relationships, right? They want closeness, right? Um, And it's interesting when you combine that with the fact that it's also, very beneficial for them to have time alone, right? Like I always preach with my Aquarius ass, like what I call the Aquarian relationship, which is, being able to take energetic breaks from each other, having your own bedroom if necessary, and just sort of having your own life and then coming together. It doesn't work for everyone, right? But yeah, like Cancer moons, they can definitely get stuck in bad moods for longer periods of time than other moon signs, and they have such a depth and intensity to their feelings that it can lead them to like, periods of depression and stuff like that. And with all that fire, it can just be difficult because, like I said, people will see the Leo, they'll see the Aries, they won't see the Cancer. So it can lead to all kinds of misunderstandings. Like, for example, let's say like someone says like some type of comment thinking that like, you'd be able, like it wouldn't like affect you, but then it does, right? So that leads to like communication. And then when you have, Mercury in Pisces, sometimes communication can be a little bit wavery. It can be a little bit abstract, a little bit like really good with a high abstract type of conversation. But then when it comes to like the more basic human communication, because Mercury in Pisces is like, it's a connection between, it's being able to connect with the divine through your mind, receiving downloads. It's like the door between the mind, and it's like this infinite type of thinking. It's not like this very logical thinking typically. Not that they're not capable of that, but they're more artistic minded, right? So they will see life in a very different way, which is very, very good for anything spiritual, whether it's astrology, any kind of helping profession or anything artistic. But I've seen Mercury Pisces people do good in all over, right? So, but like really the mind prefers depth, prefers substance, prefers to be speaking about spirituality, to be connecting with people who also have those types of interests, right? So when I talk about feeding both mouths, the fire and the water side, it's like the side that needs that emotional nurturance, that needs that depth, that connection. But then fire, it's about passion. It's about feeling alive. It's about adventure. It's about fun. It's about just doing it. Just going for it. So that is sort of, I guess, what I would say. Like one, like I could talk about my experience a little bit, right? As a Pisces, that's a part of me that wants to be very introverted and stay home, all that. But then my Sag moon is like, no, I got to adventure. I got to move around. My Leo rising is like, I got to same thing as the Sag moon. So sometimes like the water can be a little bit like pushed away, right? So it's very important to know that and be aware of that, right? Now, um, I think that, like Scorpio gets the Scorpio and Cancer, like I think both sometimes can have difficulty with letting go of resentments and things from the past or whatnot. So it's really important to kind of take that inner inventory and know, okay, this thing is still affecting me. I need to deal with it, right? Let's say, like, for example, there's like a parent or someone in your life, a sibling, a friend, whatever, that had like a really hurt you, and or an ex or whatever. Sometimes the archetype of Cancer, it's the crab, and the crab can crawl back into its shell when it's hurt and then have trouble trusting again, right? Like I've seen so many Cancer moons, Cancer suns who were hurt in like a early relationship and then haven't gotten one since, right? So that's part of the journey for Cancer, is like if that's experience has happened, to learn to trust again, you know? But yeah. So it boils down to, with people, to trusting that instinct, to to being able to like strengthen that intuition and know that just because you don't know why, logically why you know something, that doesn't make it wrong, you know? I really think intuition is like a muscle. Um, And the more you work with it and the more you start to see proof, like, damn, like that thing that just came to me and I was right, right? Like I'm sure you've had experiences where, you had that first, let's say it's like someone you're dating or whatever, like you had that first gut, or a friend, that first gut instinct, and you went against it, right? And then in the end, you were right. So it's like it's happened to all of us. So it's like, what was that thing? What was that something that was telling you that message, right? Usually it's from the gut. Um, so sometimes people can like give like Cancer moon, water moons, like they can tell them they're irrational and like, why are you thinking you're overthinking, blah blah. It's bullshit. You don't want people around who are kind of telling you that, right? Because you're able to tap into the unconscious very easily, and even like the collective unconscious. So you just feel things, and when I said like being emotionally led, I meant more in like very tense situations. But in general, like, you know, being discerning and having the ability to like take in the information and then make the decision over time is very, very powerful. Um, so like one thing I've noticed with Cancer moons is like they have such a good emotional intelligence, but also emotional memory. Like they can really remember like how someone or something made them feel at a very detailed level, right? Which is it's like a double-edged sword because it's like it's very good, but then like it can also be, remembering bad things, right? So moving on can be difficult, like I said before, right? Um, but I would say, yeah, it's just like when you look at the opposite sign, which is your south node, Capricorn, it's all about boundaries, right? So Cancer moon, I always talk about the opposite sign as where you can learn from. So you can learn from the opposite sign, Capricorn, as having good physical boundaries, right? And not having to like explain or over explain why you feel a certain way and why you're setting a certain boundary, right? And sometimes that's hard for the empath, right? And people might say like, oh yeah, you're overthinking, you're tripping, you're overreacting, all this stuff. But no. Now, back to boundaries, what happens often with Cancer moons is like when they get upset, a lot of times it boils around not like, and having this fire helps you a lot, right? And the Jupiter trying your moon, it's just like being able to have your emotions, but then be on this like summit where you see the big picture, which is so amazing. And it gives you this real optimism, which is so massive for a Cancer moon to have. It's like during tough times, you're still able to see, the glass is half full. Um, but yeah, that's one thing. Being able to like communicate, enforce boundaries is really big. Um, I would say like with Cancer moon, Scorpio moon, like the low vibe of it, right? Because there's always like the low and the high and everything in between manifestation of the moon sign would be using the advanced emotional intelligence to control or manipulate, or even like some cases like play victim, or just like using these tactics to kind of get what they want. Um, so yeah. Besides that, Cancer moons, yeah, super contemplative. They need that time, that space to kind of like think, and whether it's like write or have some type of outlet, right? Very creative. But in terms of healing, it's like that process, right? Of really, really tapping into that North Node in Cancer and understanding, not lying to yourself about, you know, like something that may have hurt you, and really, really leaning into that. And I always tell people, like, one very powerful thing I always tell people to do with resentments and stuff of that nature is to, like use the power of writing, right? Like, for example, stop, like narcissism has been like a huge topic for a lot of people lately, right? And I tell people, like, and a lot of times that they have to create these big physical boundaries with, let's say, like a family member or who else, whoever. And it's like they can't really physically communicate with that person, right? Because that person is just toxic. So it's like I always say, like, write a letter to the higher self, to the higher self of that person, the untouched child version of that person, right? And then do like a ceremony where you write the letter, and then you can burn the letter, and while burning you're like praying that you're cutting the cord or whatever, right? So it's very powerful. But just finding healthy ways like that to process negative emotions and work through any type of potential trauma is massive. Because Cancer Moon, yeah, like I said, they can get stuck in the past, and like things can just come back to them. And yeah, it's tough to move forward in life when um that comes up. And because it is so conscious, it can feel overwhelmed quite easily, right? And sometimes even a little bit, sometimes Cancer Moons can have some insecurities. So it's just like the whole journey is with the North Node, right? Which is like your highest destiny being the same sign as your moon. It's really indicating that for your ultimate success on a soul level, it is about tapping into the highest energy of Cancer, which is the nurture. It's the nurture of self and nurture of others, right? But then also there's that level of like giving and receiving. And sometimes Cancer moons are so like giving, giving, giving. And, so they really have to look at their relationships in that sense. Um, so yeah, and I think like, yeah, just communication also would be a big part of this chart. Um, and just finding ways to kind of just yeah, just really, really communicate. It could even be through, like Cancer moons are great with the arts, like I said. So like having like an artistic outlet, um, and just anything that's able to like get you to relax and to release. Um, so yeah, like even like cooking, right? Cancer's the best cook. Um, Painting, whatever it is. So yeah, and just like that need for affection and touch and reassurance. Um, and no, yeah, just like a lot of the kids with Cancer moons can feel like overwhelmed. And yeah, they want that groundedness, right? They want that solid home life that can then allow them to go out in the world and do what they need to do. Um, so yeah, like I said, like usually the mother, the primary caregiver, very influential. So the relationship with, usually Cancer moon, and there's not really any bad aspects, usually was quite nurturing. Usually it's quite good. I don't see any big afflictions, right? I mean, just the square with the sun and with Mars. I mean, I guess with Mars, you could look at that as like moon square Mars, like that's another thing where like working out, having some kind of physical thing you're doing could be very, very important because when in a low vibe, it can just lead to like irritability and patience and quick and kind of like with that Cancer moon, it can just like snap at times, right? But it's in Mars in Libra, which can be very frustrated because Mars in Libra doesn't like conflict, right? But Aries Sun it does, and that's the nature of that T square, right? Moon square Mars square Sun, Sun opposite Mars. So, um, yeah, I think like when you have that, um, some people can, yeah, it's just all about channeling it, right? And I talk about this because you have no Earth in your chart, as I was saying, but your South Node's in Earth. So a lot of times when I see that, I think that there's something there. Like when I see someone who has the South Node in a sign that they don't have any other um planets in, like inner planets. I think, okay, well, there's a good chance that they've mastered that energy in a past life and that they don't really need to have planets in that sign or in that element. But still, regardless, I'll say that um, Earth energy is balance, right? As I was saying before, people with lots of Earth, sometimes they can be a bit boring. um, but yeah, they're the kinds of people that can go to their 9 to 5 job and be very, be consistent, like be like a similar version of themselves day after day. With a Cancer moon, because the emotions are, you know, up and down and all that. And of course, there's a lot you can do to help that. Um, yeah. Now, on that point, I was talking about the childhood. Well, Pluto and Saturn are on the IC. So even though there's not an affliction to the moon, Pluto on the IC is one of the biggest indicators in all astrology of childhood trauma. Saturn also. So this kind of flips things around a little bit, right? Because usually Saturn on the IC, it is, you know, what degree? But yeah, it's typically someone who, you know, a lot of times people with that, like they felt a lot of restriction early on. So as a Cancer moon who wants to be able to express emotions and closeness and all that, oftentimes what happens with that is that and let's see, it's yeah, 4.5 from Mars, and oh, it's right on Pluto. So yeah, Pluto is the closest one. So yeah, and I have that too, as I said, but mine's square the nodes. So mine relates more to past life trauma. Um, but yeah, so usually like people with this, they had like lots of like family responsibilities early on. Maybe there's like perfectionism in the family or like a lot of pressure to kind of like, yeah, like succeed in a certain way. And it's almost like with those two, they're opposite the midheaven, right? Which, yeah. So it's like in order for you to get to your highest point in terms of your dharma, it's like there's this big need to overcome past traumas. So sometimes with the Saturn, people feel like they had to grow up too fast. Um, it can be around the father, right? Not feeling like the support that you needed. Um, kind of root chakra energy. Um, which can come from like, a divorce potentially, or just not feeling, because like a Cancer moon, they like that stability in childhood. So their parents are divorced and they have to like move a lot. It can be very, very difficult, right? One, a non-trauma to one person can be like a trauma to someone else, right? So yeah, it's just like a lot of times it's just like issues with like coping with changes early on. Um and yeah, just like on the emotional level, it's like that solid base not necessarily being there, right? And kind of like I think with Cancer moons, it's like Cancer North nodes, it's like you are teaching yourself how to be your own metaphoric mother in this lifetime, nurture, right? Um, so lots of lessons early on, right? Lots of karmic lessons early on in childhood. Um, and yeah, and then with Pluto, which is, you know, phew, it's right on there. I mean, it's a degree and a half. That one is like probably, I mean, when we talk about trauma and astrology, Pluto IC is, yeah, I mean, it talks about a very volcanic, um, challenging home environment early on. Usually there's, childhood traumas linked to it. Um, whether it's like something with a family, sometimes there's like lots of secrets in the family. It could be linked to like some type of generational trauma that you're the one that's here to break. And sometimes with that, like boundaries are needed, right? Physical boundaries are needed. And sometimes the Cancer Moon feels so connected to their family that they find it difficult to create those boundaries or to separate because they feel like it's some kind of like disloyal, but like sometimes that's like the only way to do it, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, I've seen all kinds of stuff with this one of like a really abusive father, just like a really kind of like crazy, difficult experience early on. Um, so really it is about kind of like learning to assert yourself without resorting to like aggression or anything like that, or playing victim, um, or doing anything that would perpetuate the trauma. So, you know, people with Pluto, I see a lot of times they become healers because their early childhood experiences, like they overcome them, right? And I also like, because I have this, I've done a lot of inner thought, or I thought a lot about the meaning of it. I think it can make someone so fucking tough because they had to go through something so difficult early on, or some things so difficult that they survive it, and it's like they're unbreakable after, That's like the strong side of it. And it's like it gives this like almost like this like dense ball of determination where it's like I can make it through anything, right? And um yeah, usually it does influence the career choice. Like a lot of times it's like psychology, or in other cases, Pluto's linked to power. So people with that can like on some level like really, really, want power, right? But like is it metaphysical power, or is it like, the dominant power? But I've also seen a lot of Pluto. I see people have issues with substances, right? And it is also square the nodes, like mine. Damn, interesting. Um, yeah. So that is indicating, just like me, so interesting. I rarely ever see this, that this energy may have, so it might be like how it is for me, where this energy might not have manifested itself so much in childhood. Like a little bit about me, I had this, but and you have Saturn, and yeah. So, but I didn't really have like a childhood that was like trauma. But and I wrote this in my book, and it's probably one of the most important things I ever learned about astrology for myself, that because the nodes are square Pluto on my IC, that first of all, everything that happened in the childhood was very, very karmic and meant to happen and meant to push you to where you're going today, right? One. Two, that the like I always said like the trauma I showed, or like I guess like the response to trauma, unless there's something I don't remember, which I don't think there is, right? It was so like it's like you would think of like, okay, the trauma and then the response to trauma, right? Usually you can kind of equate the two, right? Like let's say like this terrible things happens to this person this age, when they're young, and then they have that response in life that they have to overcome. But in this case, you know, sometimes what happens is that it's past life trauma. So it's trauma that you come into this life with that trauma, which is trippy to think about, right? And it's like you don't even remember it. And yes, there usually there are adverse childhood, um, you know, adverse events that happened and trauma and all that, but it doesn't always equate to like what the individual felt, right? Like in my case, I was fucked up, but like both my parents loved me. I maybe had my difficulties with my dad early on, but it was never like from a lack of love or care. You know what I mean? It was just, yeah. So that's something I find really, really, really fascinating. And maybe you can reflect on that as well. Um, so some of the themes that could come up are themes of betrayal, past life betrayal, which make it very hard to trust. And because it's on the IC, it could really relate. It could relate to siblings if you have any, um, but really just like to family in general. So like the karma around family is so important for you to heal, to truly move on. And when I say this, I'm talking the same way I would talk to you if you were, 18, 25, 30, 35, 40. I just say it how I see it. So obviously people have done lots of work at different times of their life. So when they get a reading, it's very, very different. But I like to give like, you know, what I see and the potentials. So so yeah, so that's very interesting. So I was saying that yeah, like the mother was most likely quite good with the Cancer moon, but like in this case, if it's the 12th house in whole sign with these on the IC, then maybe not. Maybe there's just like a feeling of like abandonment potentially, right? With Pluto IC, you know, it's tough to tell with the nodes. But really it's like that need for stability and safety, um, just not necessarily like being met. And um yeah, so it's just like what can happen is that the person can take on this energy of escapism, in the sense of like when they're younger, they had coping mechanisms to not deal with what was there. And then it can kind of perpetuate into adulthood, right? Um, like, yeah. So a lot of times with these types of placements, I find that the people, especially people who are like growing and who are spiritually growing and all that, they want to create a family life. Well, I see it in different ways. Sometimes they just like don't want family at all or kids at all, or sometimes they want to adopt kids. Sometimes they just want to create the exact opposite of what they had, right? Um, but yeah, like I said before, like with my chart is a perfect example. Um, it's past life trauma, so it doesn't always resonate um with this life. Um, so yeah, like so relationships are very, very important. Cancer moon. A lot of times it's like prioritized over their external life goals and achievements. They love their friends, their friends can become their family. Um, they're just, yeah, loving, caring people. And I mean, you have the chart of a healer, like 1,000%, 1,000%. And it's so tough to have that Pluto Saturn IC. And I definitely think that that's an indication. Like I hope you're away from Missoula. Um, if you're not, that's not like the end of the world. It's just like, you know, astrocartography could definitely show you places that could be a lot more beneficial. But anyways, you know, like it makes someone who's such a good listener and who doesn't judge, who understands how difficult life can be. And they're just like, because of their experiences, they're like the best healers. Like if you're a healer who hasn't been through shit, like your level of empathy, your level of truly, truly understanding won't be as high. So yeah, so yeah, but then like there is that valuing of family, as I said, right? So that's the kind of some of the difficulty there is the boundaries, right? Um, but back to what I said at the start about how the sun square moon, a lot of times they want to be, completely different than mom and dad, right? They want to blaze their own trail. So that takes a lot of courage to do that. But being a South Node Capricorn, you have that in you. Like, okay, so let's talk about love a little bit. Or should I go there yet? Well, I guess what I'll say, Leo rising, you know, I love it. Um, it gives that spark, it gives that gregariousness. Aries is the warrior, so it's like like it's very clear to me with the ninth house sun that like you're not meant to be where you were raised. I mean, I'd be very surprised if you were. And you're meant to explore the world, right? And you're meant to explore different ideas and all that, philosophies, and then tie them back to everything. And you know, I think that having that fire, it gives you that power, that power to get past a lot of things. Feeding both mouths in this case is like giving everything I've been saying about the Cancer moon what it needs, not overlooking that, you know, because Aries can be so gung ho on to the next one, on the next one. Leo rising, the sun ruling your chart from the ninth, right? Very adventurous. But yeah, like just understanding that like your internal healing is literally linked to your north node, your highest destiny, and linked to you achieving your midheaven the best way, which is Mars ruled, right? So it's like Mars in Libra also could, in retrograde too, which is very, very rare, could link to, counseling or someone who wants to bring balance in some type of way. It's also, good for business, but Mars retrograde a lot of times, karmically, could be someone who, misused their Mars energy in past lives. So, for example, like they overacted or underacted, and in the case, or acted in a way that they weren't, that wasn't in line with where they're trying to really go as a soul. So, um, in the third, also it can, Libra third, it can with all those planets there, it can make someone sort of doubt themselves when it comes to communication, when it comes to exerting their ideas, especially with the sensitive Mercury and Pisces, they can tend to take on what's not theirs, especially square Neptune. So Mercury square Neptune, the person really has to watch out for kind of paranoia, like the mind, like I said, it can like work at such a high level on the abstract and all that. But then yeah, so like communication on the basic level, like there's a book called Nonviolent Communication that's really, really good. Probably the best book I read in my psychology schooling. Uh it's just a really good one. And yeah, so with Saturn there could definitely have been shyness early on, even with the Leo rising Aries sun, which that yeah could definitely push it away. But the fact that it's retrograde, the Mars, I think it's just like once again speaking to the need to assert yourself in this lifetime, you know, to speak up for yourself and creating those emotional boundaries that are allowing you to fully get to where you want to get to on on your spiritual journey. Um, yeah. So yeah, what I love about Leo rising, it's so funny. Like this is just like a random thing that I've kind of realized. Like I've been in South America. I got like such little sun in 2023. Leo is ruled by the sun. And I'm starting to think that like us Leo risings, I know it's like kind of like that for everyone, but I swear like we are fueled by the sun. Like the more sunlight like sunlight can be like the biggest game changer for everyone. But for Leo rising, like it just makes sense that as a Leo rising, the sun gives us something special, right? Um, and Cancer, like I said, it can be very secluded, right? It can be very, very kind of hidden, want to, stay behind closed doors, all that. So I think that's something too, is that balance between those two of experience. Like for example, like let's say like traveling is a big thing for you or whatever. Um, still needing that like nurturance and that home, that feeling of home within. So this is Cancer at an elite level where it's like yes, you love your home, all that, but it's like being able to wherever you go still have that home. You know what I mean? That internal home, which I think of the moon sign as your internal home, how you live within yourself. So Cancer moon and even with a Libra Mars, it wants peace, it wants peace, it wants security. So when we talk about love, Cancer moon and love is definitely very much about having solid relationships that, where they're secure, where they've created super solid foundations. Um, and with Libra Mars, like I said, you want to not be giving, 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 right? All the time. Like, it needs to be balanced. And then obviously, like, family is super important in Cancer moons, whether it's like, yeah, family of origin or family that they're building or their friend family. And very, very faithful, very committed people. Like, they're not going to mess around in relationships, but you do have Aquarius, Venus like me, so we'll get into that. But um sometimes they want like that perfect love, Um, and sometimes, like, like a Pisces moon, they can fall in love with the potential, um, and fall very, very deeply in love, right? So yeah, sometimes it's like for Cancer moons, it's like the person has to do something like really, really bad to get them to stop loving them, or to, like, yeah, move away. But I think it's just really important for Cancer moons to choose the right partners, right? And we'll get more into that in a sec. Um, yeah, like, just being very careful who you give your heart to, because not everyone feels as deeply as you do, right? Um, so having that discernment and really taking your time, that's why I go back to the Mars energy in your chart. Like, that can make you impulsive emotionally. So it's like with any kind of big emotional decision, taking your time, right? Um, but I think a big theme is like, if you think about your energy, and your energetic bandwidth each day is 100 points, right? How much energy are you giving to this person? How much to that person? Like, how much to yourself, right? Like, how much room is there in your life for that? Like, right? So, sometimes you have to distance yourself from certain people, right? And that can be the hardest thing for the Cancer moon. And also with relationships, sometimes Cancer moons will want to, like, play the savior, And one of the key lessons a lot of times is, like, you can bring a horse to the bar, but you can't force the horse to drink it, right? Only someone who actually wants to be helped can be helped. So, um, yeah, a lot of times, like, Cancer moons, as they get older, they do become more self-protective, more cautious in those areas. Um, but yeah, and yeah, so I think that there's a very, very soft, very beautiful feminine energy to Moon and Cancer woman. They're people you go to for advice. They're people that give great advice, that know what to say at the right moment. They can feel your emotions, like I was saying before. And it's interesting, like, I've noticed a lot of them, yeah, like I was saying before, like, they won't overshare. Like, sometimes they can be a little bit protective, right? Um, and sometimes, like, with some of the placements you have, like with communication, it's like very important to state your needs very clearly, because sometimes they can like expect people to be as psychic as they are, and like know what their needs are without ever saying them. Um, but really, like, in a relationship, it's like, yeah, it's like that safety and that nurturance, right? Like, it's like that kind of person, that partner that you can look at, and it's like almost they feel like family, like in a sense, like, who they are, you know? Like, you feel so safe with them on every level. But yeah, I think one of the biggest strengths of Cancer Moon is just like home life and parenting, and yeah, just like they just have this special ability to make people feel very at ease. And when they're at their high vibe, um they're very good at doing that with themselves, right? And like, when it comes to children, they're super, super, like, that's like the best moon sign for a mom, because they have this amazing connection with their children's emotions, and they're so receptive to what they need. So yeah. So then, like with Venus and Aquarius, that's a little different, right? Because um well, it has really nice aspects. Well, it squares Chiron, so we'll start with a tough one. Venus square Chiron, Venus in Aquarius, seventh house. So Venus seventh house is very beautiful because it enables someone to really see the beauty in their partner. Um, and yeah, they can just find lots of love and beauty in relationships. So it's really, really good for, but yeah, they also like with Mars and Libra, they want peace and quiet and they need that in relationships. They need that serenity. It's a good word for it. Now, Venus in Aquarius. This is where it's a little interesting, right? Because Venus in Aquarius, they love what's different. They love the unconventional partner. Like whether they're from a different background or they just can fall in love with a more eccentric person, someone they can fall in love with the mind of someone, right? And they value humanitarianism. They value helping, right? They value um like whether it's like their tastes are usually very like individual. Like for example, my tastes like in music, like or fashion or anything, like I never follow any trends. Like I do me, and then somehow the world sometimes follows me. I swear. Um, so it's like that. In relationships, Venus and Aquarius is very much about space. So this is the kind of like the interesting part. Aries also likes to keep its own individuality, right? So it's like on one hand it's like that need for that closeness and that real strong foundation, but then on the other hand it's like you know still needing to keep your own individualism within relationships. So it's that balance between the extreme of codependency, right, and too much independence where you're not willing to kind of give anything at all. So yeah, I would say that yeah, it could just make you attracted to like kind of yeah, very, very outside the box thinkers. Having your Mars and your Venus in air will make you need to be best friends with your partner, need someone that can really understand you, understand your ideas, understand, like who's there to either learn or teach or that kind of thing. And then with the Mars in Libra, like I said, that's like someone who doesn't you know they want peace. They don't want something that's toxic. Well, who does, right? But like they want something that's fair and where it just kind of comes naturally, that flow, right? So but yeah, Mars and Libra, like the lesson is to lean into that Aries because it can be so indecisive. But going back to the T square before I go back to love, right? Well, I guess I would say with Mars and Libra, it's like it's all about the mind. Um, and they tend to like good manners, like more refined Venusian, kind of like the gentleman, or you know, um, and I think that there can also be sometimes like an over idealization. So that's yeah, just like understanding like that there is a potential for like wanting that perfect partner. Um, but yeah, I mean, it is someone who can really go with the flow with intimacy, and yeah, they usually have high standards, which is natural, right? Like they like classy people. They don't like rude people. Um, but yeah, with like the T square, um, with the sun and Mars, it can just feel like you're just constantly being challenged, right? Especially growing up, like having parental figures like opposing you and you fighting back. And then it can continue into adult life, right? Feeling like, you know, you're always having to fight back. So it's like learning the difference between being assertive and aggressive, right? Um, and the fact that the T square shoots out in Capricorn makes so much sense because that's a sign of boundaries. So it's really about boundaries. And then when we talk about boundaries, we talk, okay, well, you know, you have Mercury square Neptune, right? And um, God, do I know that one well? I don't have it. My girlfriend does. And I would say like it's so spiritual. It's so it can be so psychic, but it's like there can be lots of fog that can get in the way. Like an overactive imagination that can kind of like get in the way like the rational thought. And there can also be like self-deception. So yeah, like and already having Mercury in Pisces, like it's like yeah, very abstract as I said, right? But I would say it's all about perspective and taking your time and not succumbing to like escapism and just like taking the time to kind of like structure your mind and focus on like the base level communication, base level understanding of things, right? Of people, right? Like for example, like in psychology, reality testing. Like let's say you're like you think that someone you're dating has this opinion of you, and you reality test. You say, hey, like this is what I think. Like, am I way off or am I correct? So it's just an example. Um, so I think like the more people with this like work with other people and help healing other people and they get deeper into like psychology, just like whether it's through astrology, but just understanding human psychology on a deeper level, the more they start to understand about how humans are. And you have your Jupiter in um Scorpio, so that's like that natural psychologist, what I call that one, right? Um, so yeah. hmm I think like being able to redirect those talents into something more magical and artistic, spiritual. It's just like it's just like seeing the world through like just this different lens than other people, right? And it's yeah, it can be very distorted and lead to like yeah, lots of misunderstandings, right? So yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like the basics of language, like in like the confusion can enter in those types of close relationships and being able to do so well at like the higher level, but then at like the ordinary level, like I don't know, if it's like basic communication, like receiving instructions and stuff like that. It's like more difficult, right? Also, Mercury, Neptune, anything with contracts, really, really um, get like professional advice with those. Um, but yeah, like I said, there can be lots of like insecurities at like the more mental level early on. Maybe like such a daydreamer. Um, so it's really just about like yeah, finding your lane in life, right? Um, and also with what's the Cancer and Pisces, Mercury and Moon, it's like it can be very, very sensitive to criticism or rejection, right? So it's like important for your friends to also be the sensitive types, that you can talk about everything with, right? So that's very key. So yeah, that plays its role in relationships too. But um, what's cool about your chart, like well, a lot of it's cool, but like you have all your water is in water houses. So like Jupiter in the fourth, it's like, it just gives like the ability to really dive deep within kind of the unconscious, the self, with Mercury in the eighth. And yeah, both of those are very, very good for like like Mercury eighth people. I have that same house, same nearly 1 degree away or two, and just like it's just like that person that wants to dive so deep into like scorpionic like mysteries of life, those types of affairs, right? Which is very interesting. So kind of more surface level stuff might not really do it for you, but then you're able to go there too as a Leo rising. You're able to kind of exist in this world. But yeah, Venus square. So I was talking about like Venus square Chiron, like that is like lessons in pain and love usually early on, right? And um, a lot of times it goes back to facing those early childhood feelings, right? Usually around rejection that will come up in relationships. Usually it's the earlier ones. So it gives the ability to have very healing relationships, but it's like with a Cancer moon, it's like that whole thing of like being able to trust again, right? Now, also Venus is trine Saturn and Pluto. So like Venus trine Saturn is amazing. It's very good for money, first of all. Um, and in love, it's like the best aspect for like marriage, pretty much, because it's like it creates like Saturn is like the glue in relationship astrology, right? So it's like someone who can like who's just a very like stable, dependable partner. And yeah, like also really good for business partnerships and stuff of that nature. And it is a good indicator for being able to be good with handling money. Um, but yeah, so I would say that Juno in Capricorn, which represents I look at Juno as like your ideal partner, like on like a deeper like kind of level. So in the sixth house in Capricorn, it's pretty, it's 11 degrees from your south node. So it could have some karmic component, right? But it could also be that you might be more interested in older partners or more mature partners, partners that have their shit together, like going back to like the whole Cancer thing of that security, right? Of that, it could be like financial, not just financial, right? Financial, but also, like the person that is going to be there. They're not just like messing around. And that's one thing I think that can't Capricorn is about foundations, right? So yeah. Um, but yeah, once again, it's like just it opposes your moon, so it's like very important that like um it goes back to the idea of that energy exchange being fair, right? Are you giving more than you receive? Um, so it's like you have so much to give, like such an amazing partner, but then it's like not allowing people to take that for granted. You know what I mean? Um, and making sure that you're nurturing yourself as much as you're looking after others in relationships, right? Um, so like that's the thing is like with the Mars and Libra, when people have that, like, sometimes it's just like it's so hard for them to make decisions, and like I said, being an Aries helps a lot, right? But they oppose each other exactly. And um yeah, like I guess like if you look at that T squared deeper, pushing in the sixth house, it's like by being able to have a very solid routine, right? Physical, that hits your physical, emotional, spiritual, every O, you know, then that is going to give you that balance that you need when you lack that earth, right? When you lack earth, you have to try extra hard with your diet, with your, sleep, with your, um, just with your energy on a daily basis, right? It's just not as easy to kind of get there. So you figure out what works for me. Like for me, it's running, right? For me, it's waking up and going to get my coffee and going on a walk in the sun, right? It's my work, right? It's these things. But to say like me, I have Saturn in Capricorn, right? So that's more that's some Earth, even though it's Saturn. Um, so I do have some Earth in that sense, but like I'm not consistent, you know. Like I'm still very ruled by my ever-changing moods and all that. So it's like that's just something to know about, because society kind of puts us in a box of like, oh, you have to be like this, you have to be like that. Um, so yeah. Um, yeah, I guess also Juno and Capricorn, yeah, you just want someone that yeah, long-term commitment that you can respect and who respects you. It's that simple, right? And sixth house, Juno, it could be like, yeah, someone who you work with maybe, or someone who you guys are kind of like a team. You guys work in this very harmonious way to make sure that like like the day-to-day stuff gets done, chores, any big decisions are made together, all that, right? And maybe, they have a role in kind of grounding you and helping you with your consistency in terms of routine. Which I'm not saying you're bad at, because I have seen Cancer moons be very, very good in this respect. But like, yeah, it's just there's such a balancing game here that's needed, right? Like you could easily be the kind of person that, like, let's say, like, is able to spend a few days like on a trip with friends, but then it's like after that, it's just like, okay, I need to be alone for a long time. Um, so yeah, I definitely, if you have siblings, I could definitely see clashes with them. Um, with all those planets in the third. And yeah, just like kind of this journey to like find that self-esteem, right? Which, like, could very well come through that career with Chiron in the 10th and whole sign. Um, right. I see a lot with healers, but I see a lot of this too, where it's like they were misunderstood growing up and maybe deemed to be less intelligent or something, with their thought process was like maybe they just weren't understood by their parents, and they started to think, oh, maybe I'm stupid, maybe there's something wrong with my way of thinking. It's like this journey to like find, like, no, I'm not. I have lots of gifts, right? And yeah, like Saturn Libra could also make it so like it wasn't until like your Saturn return that like the best relationships came. Very possible. Um, and yeah, like Jupiter, like I said, in Scorpio, that's just like that person who's like on that intense journey for truth. It's kind of like with the eighth house Mercury, it's like someone whose mind is very, very in the unseen realms, who wants to like really, really go deep, and it's like that explorer, that prober. And with Scorpio, Jupiter makes everything bigger. So it's like, yeah, just someone who, yeah, it's like I said, it's the natural seeker. Um, and also Jupiter fourth house people, I've noticed that sometimes they're the kind of people that like love to like be at home, which is so Cancer, and like kind of almost like do a lot of research and whatnot from their home. And usually Jupiter fourth house, they like larger homes, larger spaces. Like you probably like this place I'm at. It's like kind of high ceilings. Airbnb. I might just go out. Check, check, check. Okay, it's working. It's working. It's working. Okay, yeah, now it's showing. Okay, so moving forward, yeah, so Jupiter and Cancer, I have that there too. So, or what am I talking about? I meant to say Jupiter and Scorpio. What am I saying? What am I saying? What am I saying? I'm losing my mind. Losing my mind. Um, yeah, it's just like it just gives a lot of potential for growth, and it's very powerful and very determined, right? It can make someone like very obsessed with something, with like an achievement, like something they want to get done. So, like you said, you're mind on something, you can definitely go get it. Especially if you have like an emotional attachment to it as a Cancer moon. A lot of Jupiter Scorpio people are like, it's good for finances a lot of times. So yeah, yeah. And it trines your moon. So, you know, it gives you this like real feedback about people around you and about kind of, I think also with your own family, you probably understand them on like such a deep in your childhood. Like it's such a good placement here because of all the difficult energy. It probably gives you so much insight um around your childhood and around kind of your family and stuff like that and the psychology there. But yeah, anything hidden, hard to grasp, you want to like learn more and more about it, right? It can bring very powerful teachers too, like karmically. Um, and just yeah, just like teachers and people you associate with. Um, so yeah, it's a lucky placement, right? Um, yeah, usually people just get yeah, they 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 can have like difficult things happen, but they rise up stronger, you know. You can't kill a Scorpio. Um, so yeah, like the and yeah, like with any Jupiter and Scorpio, like the more you learn about spirituality, the more you kind of speed up that inner transformation that's so key to your whole chart. So yeah, and I think it all goes back to that, like the more willing you are to face your shadow, the better, right? But like you have like these natural abilities to do that. And like the more you like are able to let go of trauma and any kind of debilitating kind of energy, you just like the more abundance comes, right? It's like being able to, like, let's say you have a big resentment, being able to clear that, and yeah, things still happen, but you don't hold that. It's like cleaning your garden. It's like you're cleaning your garden. You can't control what they do, but yeah, it's good for yeah, like I said, it's very good for finance and business too. Just as good as just as it is good for like psychology. It's very good for understanding, like let's say like in sales or marketing, like just understanding what other people want. So yeah, and having Mars and Libra is good for that too. Um, and yeah, so by the house, as I was saying, Jupiter fourth, like it is a lot of people with that they do have good luck come with association to their family, but who knows? Um, so I would say that um let me think for a second. Mm, Yeah, I mean like typically like this would mean like really good family relations, but it could mean that you just like learned a lot from your family or from childhood, but like there still are the difficult placements there. Um, it's actually really good for real estate, fourth house Jupiter. Um, what it could actually mean, it could mean like that like if you have like kids in a family now, it could actually be speaking to like a lot of abundance there. Um, or even like in like a good karmic like relationship with your ancestors, right? Um, and like some type of inheritance, like whether it might not be like wealth or something like that, but it could be like, something from the ancestors, something like some kind of spiritual powers that you receive from them. And just a close relationship to them. Because I feel like you are here to break some kind of like curse in your family. So many of my clients have this, it's crazy. Um, so you might have like a lot of help if you can tap into that, right? And it's yeah. Mm. Yeah, I've seen so many, even like real estate in foreign countries could be really good. But I've seen people with this be really good in real estate. Um, Also, I think of the idea of uncovering secrets, kind of like it's like uncovering mysteries. And it's with your part of fortune. So it's like that's a really good placement where it's like kind of indicating that the more you lean into that energy I just described, you find your kind of your flow, your greatest flow state, right? So like the more that you're in touch with your inner self, right? Part of fortune fourth house, which is very similar to your North Node in Cancer, um, the better. Like being able to like experience new beginnings and let go of the past and let go of worldly expectations, the better, right? And the more you're able to like go through that death rebirth transformation of Scorpio, where yeah, you're just like letting go of older versions, outdated versions of yourself, the better. So yeah. So I didn't even talk about Sun opposite Saturn, did I? So that's a big one, and that makes the first 30 years very difficult. Um, Usually it's around the father. Um, you know, just usually being quite strict and whatnot, and just lots of restrictions growing up, Um, and like I said, it's like your challenge is like, you're here to create your own rules, right? You're here to create your own rules and kind of separate your energy from kind of what you came in with, which is challenging as a Cancer moon. Um, but yeah, like I said earlier, it's like usually people with this, like they had to grow up and like grow up fast. Like maybe they had like lots of you know um responsibilities, and yeah, as a Cancer moon, it can cause a lot of repression of that very important part, so that can demand that like what I call liquefaction of the stuck crystallized emotional patterns, right? Which is like the shadow work, right? But it does give this massive determination because of all these like early hardships and restrictions that you have to get past. I always say it's like 3 steps forward, 4 steps back, but then you get past them, right? And then you get past your Saturn return. Usually for Saturnian people, usually I'd love to know in the follow-up, like also take notes for like for follow-up, the whole goal is like I want people to like have it fresh in their mind slash with notes, and we just go through everything. But yeah, just like lots of a responsibility early on, and sometimes there's like a lot of inner child work that's needed because it's like the person didn't always feel like they got the love they needed and like they were able to really be a kid, right? So it's like a rough karmic hand for sure. But that doesn't mean you have bad karma. That could just mean you're a very advanced soul, you know? Like I said, I have similar things in my chart. I don't have bad karma. I'm just an advanced soul, right? So maybe we're both here for big reasons and we need to have this kick in the butt. But I'm not comparing my stuff to yours. It's very different. I'm just saying as an example. Um, so yeah, people take this in two different ways. Like either they play victim, like always getting kicked back, and they just kind of like just leave, like don't even connect with the world, or they just take on the challenge and they see it as this is the universe challenging me. But now your past Saturn returns, so you probably found that inner strength, that toughness without the karmic bullshit anymore, right? But really, it's another test of assertiveness, right? So seeing whatever happened with growing up and all that as your karma, as your chosen path, as opposed to just some horrible fate cast upon you, that's like a complete game changer, right? So yeah, like Saturn opposite moon people usually are late bloomers, right? They learn the lessons and they turn that early negativity into this confidence and this dedication and this gratitude. So it's like people with this, they are rewarded for their hard work and dedication. And everything with Saturn gets better with age, right? So it becomes the respected person, right? The builder. So yeah. Um, and then you have Sun trine Uranus, what a beautiful aspect. That's like someone who's just like very unique, who is very in like very much into their own um like they're able to they go through that individualization in a quite easy way, and they're interested in like very, non-ordinary things, but like it's done in a way that doesn't piss people off like a square or opposition mainly. But yeah, they just very open-minded, very adventurous, very progressive, like super intuitive. Like you can really, really get lots of downloads. Um, so it's like really, yeah, it's a great placement. Especially now with this Aquarius Pluto time. Um, and just yeah, being able to see out like kind of just like being able to kind of like see what's it called? Like take the road less traveled and see different perspectives that might be like, seen by others as more unconventional. Um, yeah, you just do your thing and you're not really worried about what other people think. And then through that, it gives you this ability to, because you're connecting with your true self, then you have, it's the same thing with partners and with friends. And then with Mercury trine Uranus, it's also such a genius aspect. So this is like proof of like if you ever did have that experience I was saying of like feeling like some kind of communication issue early on, or something like early on where you thought you were like you're told you were dumber than you are, or not that's the wrong words. You're told that you're dumb. Mercury trine Uranus is a genius placement. Like so many original ideas, so ahead of your time that's probably how it was for you growing up. You're probably just ahead of your time with different types of ideas, especially with your ninth house sun. You're always trying to grow and build in philosophy. If you have people around you who are very stuck in your ways, in their ways, it's super, super hard. So yeah. Also like um so Venus sextile Neptune is just amazing for art, right? It just mixes like the ability to create the art with the inspiration. And it's just like very romantic and good for like kind of partnership. But then you have Pluto trine Venus too. And that is someone who is very committed and actually can take on challenges in their personal relationships. You have Vesta there too in the seventh. So it's like very lots of commitment when it comes to relationships and making them work, right? Like willing to make the necessary changes um to make a relationship work, which is amazing. Of course, it always goes back to like having the partner that's also willing to do that. So fifth house, Neptune. Oh man, with Vertex. Okay. So do I know this one well? This is the ultimate aspect of the person that falls in love. Like fifth house, it rules like children, it rules fun, but it rules in love, like that first, like one night stand is not the right word, but like that first like pink cloud period when you first start dating someone or meeting someone. So first of all, Uranus and Neptune are there. So what Neptune can do is that I don't know if you're single or married or anything like that, whatever, but like um I have this. I know so many people who have this. This is one thing I have verified all over. I mean, not one thing, like everything, but like this one especially. It's like people with this, they just like it's like they think they met their soulmate. And maybe you're laughing right now because like it definitely gets better the more you age and mature and all that and understand yourself better. But like there's like everyone I know with this has had like situations where like they thought they met the one only to be like mistaken, right? Like I've been there with a girl I was with for not even maybe a month, and I ended up having to like block her because she was so like she just wasn't for me. Double Libra, triple Libra. Um, but yeah, she was getting very crazy. I try to be nice, but yeah. So that's kind of like with that, it's like it can create these very romantic, amazing, beautiful relationships, but you have to just take them slow. And with Uranus, and then also Neptune, fifth house, very, very strong artistic nature, like being able to like create through your intuition. And you can have very, very creative children too. I don't know how much I go into like, plants and fifth house representing the children, but sometimes it makes sense, right? And then with Uranus, it could be like, a child who's very, very, what's the word? Original and kind of like ingenious and eccentric and different. But like for you, it yeah, it can make you just like very, very, very like with your hobbies and in your creative schemes, like just very, different and unconventional with what you do hobby wise and what you enjoy, how you have fun, the kind of music you like, you know, and even like how you parent potentially, right? So then Black Moon Lilith is there too, and Black Moon Lilith and Sag, like I said, it's on my moon. I'm like, what? I hope I don't have bad karma with you. But no, I mean like Black Moon Lilith in 21 Sag, it's really like kind of like you at your lowest. So it's not necessarily something that shows up, but what you could say about it is like maybe sometimes Sagittarius tries to force their opinion, their philosophies too much on other people. So it's like being able to kind of like separate from, yeah, like being able to like separate from like understanding like yeah, like that like you can't push someone to believe everything you believe in. And usually that one's learned quite early. Um, you know, like for example, you learn about astrology and you're like, oh my God, this is life changing. I want my family to learn about it so much. So it would help them so much, right? I've been there. And then they're just not into it, but their reasons are just stupid. And you're just like blown away, right? So yeah, that'd be an example of that. Mm. And yeah, like also I think Sag, there can be like a fear of meaninglessness too, right? Of like not finding the overall truth. So it can cause like this endless questioning, right? If like, like if like our version of the truth is the right one and almost like this perfectionism with that, which can create kind of like trying too many things. So it's just like being able to like narrow down um your need for truth to what really matters. And then just really creating your own personal truth. But like yeah, with fear of meaninglessness, I think yeah, like that's you are a ninth house sun, so it's like you're gonna go and you're gonna go find go out in the world and find a lot. Vertex with Neptune is very interesting because that shows me there's lots of fate in relation to your spiritual journey, and even potentially fate in relation to the potential encounters that are very fast, very romantic. It's just about taking them slow. Um, I would say also Black Moon Lilith and Sag, it could be like throwing themselves into new ventures too quickly without thinking about it enough. So just like, yeah, just like kind of like the over idealistic, like, oh yeah, this is for sure gonna work, and like taking too many risks. Um, so yeah, just like it goes back to like not having earth and just needing to ground the self, basically, and think things through. Yeah, so midheaven being in Aries ruled by Mars, and Libra, like I said. Midheaven and Aries typically like careers. It's the ninth house, so it's like, where there's meaning, but also where you have independence. So it's better for more entrepreneurial things or things that you can do on your own where you have freedom. Um, and yeah, like I don't know. There's a lot of potentials for you in that sense. Like there's sometimes with people I just see like, okay, they're meant to be this. Well, I never break it down to one job, but like, you could literally turn your creativity into your work in some way. Even Chiron, the 10th house, could be like the healer. It's in Taurus. So it's like I always think Chiron in Taurus is about like, finding that self-esteem, that journey towards finding your own values and your own self-worth, right? And also trusting your own body. Like I always think yoga can be really, really good for people with that. And then the 10th house, it's like getting past any kind of potential like imposter syndrome as it relates to you in the outside world, right? And a lot of times, Chiron 10,000 people end up as healers, right? So, yeah. So I think also part of the nodal journey is like like being able to like having self-compassion and tolerating your own failures. Um, you have to work really hard in past lives, especially for people's respect and whatnot, right? So it's like in this life, it's like about being able to like really express your emotions honestly, as I said many times, and being able to take like the wealth of knowledge you have, right, and apply it to the collective, right, and to helping people in whatever way that means. And North Node 12th house to me is about spirituality. It's about seeing yourself as a part of the greater whole, feeling yourself as a part of the greater whole, more than seeing, you know? So it's like really about um just the dedication to spirituality, right? So let me see one thing. Come on, program. Don't shut down on me. It's like freezing. And now it's good. Okay, so let me just see. To speak on the IC, so that's a beautiful, beautiful star, and that could mean that, later in life could, you know, you could really like it could really like yeah, be like very, very promising energy for like later in life, in terms of like achievements, right? Um, the IC isn't as powerful as like MC or AC, AS. Let's see. Moon, no. Okay, nothing there. I'm just looking for fixed stars and asteroids, like significant ones that are conjunct anything. No. Uranus is a little bit too far. Okay. Okay. So nothing that I see there. Cool, cool. Well, thank you so much. So I think you had the follow-up, right? So just so you know, most people what they do is, and I just did it with your good friend whose name is not coming back to me right now. What was her name? I can't. So bad with names. I find it. It was Melissa, right? Yeah. So basically, yeah, what she did was what most people do is that you get the reading and the follow-up, and then you add the current astrology. So the follow-up you already have. Let me just double check. Also, I skipped two people to do yours, just so you know. Yeah, so you have the reading and the follow. So basically, the follow-up is an hour. Like I said, like watch as many times as you need to, take notes for sure. Um, I wasn't clear enough in the past with some people about like how the follow-up is like client led in the sense of like, it's about clarifying everything. So yeah, let me know if you want to do that. I'll offer it to you for 260. It's usually like 300 and something. Although I started telling people like like instead of just saying I'll give it I'll offer it for this much. I'll just give a because I don't know what everyone's financial situation is. I trust people. Like I think the normal price is, let's see, 350. So, but you have your Saturn return. So um you should definitely, yeah, I do a current astrology with Saturn return reading. So yeah, I do that for 280. And if you, yeah, it's your decision if you want to, if you want to do it, if you want to pay that, or if you want to pay the price that's on the website. I'm just gonna let people decide that. And basically, let me just write that down. So I said 280 for the 280 for the current astrology with Saturn return. Where is it? Um, so yeah, everything we talked about today never changes. Like this is your birth chart. This is always the same. You can watch this in 2, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and new stuff will emerge about it. Um, the current astrology is always changing, right? And I'm not saying, oh, this is gonna happen, like that's gonna happen. It's more like um understanding the energetic weather. I have lots of different predictive techniques that I use. It's very magical. So the first hour is always the follow-up still, and then it's usually hours 2 and 3 become, it's all, like I said, it's all live. It's not a long wait or anything. We can book it very soon. Just take your time with the stuff. And if you want to just do the follow-up, that's totally cool too. People do that, but most people do the current astrology. And especially when you're in your Saturn return, I mean, that's just like massive. And there's a chart you pull for that shows the energy of the Saturn return and like what to kind of expect. So yeah, it's very interesting. I have a lot of fun. I always love chatting with my peoples like that. So yeah, let me know if you could do it by email, jesseinnocentastrology@gmail.com. It's just a lot easier because I get a lot less messages there. And yeah, we shall go from there. And if you want to just stick to the follow-up, let me know also. Take your time. Ciao.